Welcome, everyone, to the next in our series, Women in STEM podcast from the ACSA, which is the Australian Curriculum Studies Association. We are delighted that you come back to join us here today. We seek to be the national voice on all things curriculum and pedagogy. But first, I'd like to start by acknowledging the lands and waterways of the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and their continued contributions to education across Australia. Now, this is really exciting for me today because it feels a little bit more of a catch-up, but we are meeting with Wendy Bode, who I definitely think is a pioneer in STEM education. And she's specifically known for her development of one of 3 regional STEM projects delivered under the Queensland Virtual STEM Academy. So in this virtual space, it looks to engage students who are disadvantaged by something such as distance, socioeconomic background, Indigenous and culture and gender, and give these students the opportunities that they would not previously have received. Now, her approach to future challenges for her students is disrupting the traditional teaching to build children's enthusiasm for STEM and develop skills for participation in what she terms a regional innovation ecosystem. She is the proud recipient of the Australian Schools Fellowship Award, and that is where I got to meet her through our fellowship. And as kindred STEM spirits, we gravitated towards one another. I distinctly remember the first time we met as we looked out over Taronga Zoo with a kookaburra by our side as we watched the echidnas beneath us. So I am thrilled today to welcome Wendy.
Thank you so much, Anna. This is exciting to be able to share our story with you.
Now, the first question is one that I ask most people because it's actually lovely to hear, because some people have such a personal connection. But what were your motivations for entering the education sector?
Oh, I remember when I was in year 7, and I suppose it was a collision of 2 worlds. We did a science experiment where we had the absorbent paper and you put it into the coloured water and you measured how far it travelled up the paper.
Yeah.
And I just remember really loving doing that experiment. And also in the same year, I said to myself, I want to be a teacher. I know I can do this. I want to help other people, because I was the kid that they would look to me to help others.
Yes.
Because I would finish early and that kind of thing. So the 2 ideas were in my mind from year 7. And then at the end of year 12, it's like, what do you want to do? And I thought, I love science, so I'm going to keep doing science at university. And so I did that, and I did research, and then education was there still in my mind. And one day I just thought, I've got to go into teaching. I have to share this with other people. Everyone starts from a teacher. And so I just went into it, didn't look back. And now 29 years later, here I am.
And I know, knowing you and how generous and so how lovely you are, that doesn't surprise me in the slightest that was one of your motivations. It's been, I can only think that as a colleague, how lovely it's been, but for all of your students, it must be just wonderful to be part of that magic that you bring. Now, when we're looking at STEM, it's not a new concept. We saw the origins back in the early 2000s, but it has gained more momentum over the years. You took STEM into the online space, which is a really big thing. Why was that? And did you ever think it would have so much success?
I really like this question because I was in my school, science teacher, science head of department, and then I was starting to notice that students in rural and remote locations do not have the same opportunities as those students in the city. And so in 2017, we took STEM online, and this was before COVID. So we were ahead of the game there. But in having an online STEM program, we were able to bridge that gap. So students in rural and remote locations all of a sudden had the opportunity to access what the other kids could. And we were able to provide that. And like when I think about students in schools that love STEM and they're the only student in the remote community, they don't have that like-mindedness around them. And so to really keep that passion burning in the online space, they can log into courses with kids from other schools that like the same thing. And that's exactly how you keep it going. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be working with STEM online, to see the students just thriving when they wouldn't normally be given that opportunity in their schools.
Yeah.
So it's just, distance is not an issue anymore.
No. And that connectedness that the virtual learning space brings, bringing so many elements together, that you're not alone. And we know how vast this country is. It's just such an invigorating thing to know that you are part of something bigger and that you have those opportunities. So
Absolutely.
When we look at it, we often see women and girls in STEM, especially in those professions. But we, as women in STEM education, really have to make those women visible, because we know the work of a lot of other STEM educators show that girls need those role models, and they connect on a deeper level in terms of the emotions. How have you done this in your work?
Yes. Well, there's 3 ways or 3 strategies that we use to target women in STEM and to lift the profile. One of them is, one of our target groups are female students. So when we are collecting registrations from schools, we encourage people to look at female students who have that passion for STEM and just need that opportunity to work and with other students across the courses. We target the female students and make sure we have that demographic covered quite well. The second one is that during our STEM courses, where the students are solving a STEM problem, we try to reach out to female STEM role models that are in industry. And so these female role models are logging into the lessons with us. They're talking to the students. They're teaching the students about their profession and their passion. And we always ask the STEM role models to also share, how did they get to where they are? So, they were at school. Did they go to university? What jobs did they have? And we found a lot of the time their careers changed as things developed, and they found their passion even more. And it's really important for the girls in the courses to see that this is happening. You don't have to decide now what you want to do. You just keep following the passion that you have. And the last thing is that as a group, my colleagues, we thought we have to do more. So a colleague has written a Women in STEM course, and this is for the female students. And the girls have to come up with ways themselves to actually promote women in STEM. So it makes them aware of the issue, and then they have to come up with the solution. So it's been very, very successful.
That's amazing, because I was actually having a conversation with someone this morning about that, just as females, some of the challenges we face and things like leaving for career moves or taking time out to raise families, all those sorts of things, and discussions that are had often by male people at different levels, which affect us. And so for us to have that voice, like your young girls, to problem solve around that is only going to make us stronger, I think, as a group of women in STEM, in that collective. Now,
absolutely. They have to make sure that they are coming with the strategies. They have to think about how to solve this.
Yeah, definitely. Now, we've seen over the last few years a considerable amount of funding allocated to STEM, and we know there's a lot of research going on of its effectiveness, but many teachers are still struggling with the concept and what the parts mean and how to translate this into the classroom. Why do you think this is?
Okay, I think just my thoughts here. When we think about STEM, people sometimes go science, technology, engineering, maths, and they put the arts in as well. And we all need to put everything together. How are we going to teach this curriculum and that curriculum and this curriculum together? It all comes down to integrating them all. And STEM is the vehicle to deliver those 21st century skills. So we do it by giving the students the problem, and then they have to use the science, technology, engineering, and maths skills to then solve it. So I think teachers find it difficult to just, how do you teach critical thinking? How do you teach
Yes.
creativity? How do you teach them to collaborate?
Yeah.
Especially teenagers, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's really hard to kind of change the curriculum and have that time to let students answer open-ended questions to
Yeah.
develop their skills. Yeah,
100%. And I think when you're talking about that, that STEM really is like an approach. So it's more in the elements of pedagogical thinking of what is the theory behind it, and then we all have this overlap of the problem-based learning, the project-based learning, and the inquiry, and which actually encompasses all the skills of the acronym within it.
yeah,
And I think you're completely right there, where it really does, if we try and have so much fidelity attached to the curriculum elements, we lose the essence of what it was intended for completely.
yes.
Now, this is lovely because as part of a fellowship, we were able to meet more kindred spirits like us and form this little mini subgroup of us in the STEM space. And I personally, that really moved my trajectory forward because I felt there was a collective of us going together with the same values, and it was outside of my state in WA. I had more people, and that community grew. Now, there are so many teachers, as we've mentioned, teaching in remote and regional areas, and they're in that STEM space. What advice would you give them to seek opportunities, or where should they begin if they want to broaden their circle of STEM advocates?
Oh, well, before I actually applied for the Schools Plus Education Award, this was exactly the problem that I was trying to solve for myself because I wasn't surrounded with people that were in the same passion and idea as myself. So that's when I went to Australian Schools Plus and was able to form part of this lovely group.
Yeah,
But if you can't actually do that, the best way is to use your networks and just
yes,
reach out to people. Even if you don't know them, usually people are willing to share. It's quite
100%.
often, yeah, it's quite often that I'll receive a call or an email saying, "Oh, do you mind if I speak to you about my idea?" And I don't know who they are, but that's okay because we meet each other and we learn what they're about to do, and we can give advice. Reach
Yeah, and
out,
definitely.
no matter what.
And I think as well, and I am, I suppose now in this role, when I was a younger teacher, I didn't understand the role of the associations, how impactful they could be. To go to my local science association, to get the best advice, to see that, or if I'm in maths, because those associations have the evidence informed backing, they are really invested in that subject area. And then I knew that when I got involved with STAWA or Science at WA, and then looking at something like Canasta, which is the overarching one, it was such a powerful thing because, as you're saying, you're meeting like-minded people who are so generous with their time and their resources. So yeah, that's a great way to get involved. Now, is there somebody in the space at the moment, a teacher, a colleague, or even a student, I guess, who you think is working the space and really exciting us about what the future looks like?
Absolutely. I I would actually like to highlight the STEM teachers that we have in the Virtual STEM Academy. They, as a group, they really have taken the pedagogy and the learning from the
Mm,
classroom and have now applied it to the online platform.
yeah,
And in order to do that, they have to shift their mindset because you have to actually, I don't want to say like let go, but you have to allow kids to explore for themselves as well in open-ended
yeah,
inquiry. So you're more like facilitating the learning rather than being the lecturer at the front.
yes,
So you're walking along students as they learn rather than leading from the front. You're walking with them. And
yes,
that's really hard to do. So I really admire the STEM teachers that we have and who are willing to take that risk and
yeah.
just do everything they can for their students to be engaged.
Yeah, well, that's a lovely segue to my next kind of question, because this is one where I'm thinking with STEM, there's an element of letting our students move into new spaces. And what you referred to there, we're not the sage on the stage anymore. We are the guide by the side, that difference. And there are sometimes, especially in the world now we've got of AI, where there are things that our students are delving into that is beyond our own knowledge and sometimes beyond our own skill sets. How do you approach those? Like, what's the best way to go in?
Well, we always think as a teacher that we're the expert, but when it comes to the technology and the advancements, it's okay not to be the expert and to not know everything. That's where we can learn with the students, and just being able to take risks with the learning as well and take time. Think outside the box, that kind of thinking. Don't be stuck. I have to get this curriculum out in the next 70 minutes. Yes. And that can be difficult. So, there's that thinking around the pedagogy and also like a noisy classroom where students are talking about the work is actually a good thing.
100. Yeah. I could not agree more. It's buzzing when that happens, isn't it? You kind of know that, and it's when you can hear that engagement and it's conversational about what the project is. It's so empowering. It was interesting. I was engaged in a sort of conversation online this morning about a teacher, I think it was in the US, who'd been contacted by IT department to say they weren't allowed to upload videos, and all of these restrictions that had occurred that had been put on the teachers. And the irony was, I thought, the best way, we navigate all of these things as teachers. We need to upload it to this platform, or we need, like, especially with the virtual space, what you're doing. And the reality is, if we gave that project or problem to the students, they would probably be able to navigate it far quicker than we ever could. They would know how to get something online and how to access it and get around the system. So we're always playing in that catch-up space, and it's letting go and going, that's our reality now.
Yes. And that's okay.
Yes, exactly. Now, this is a bit of a controversial question sort of to end on, which I can't believe it's got to this point already. But and this is obviously not a reflection of our opinions, because we know that, because we're definitely passionate in this space. But we've got our science, we've got our technologies, we've got our maths curriculum, and we're really passionate, and that there's something to hold on to. But then we've got the E. And we don't teach engineering. So why do we let the E into the squad? What is the point of it?
Oh, I was going to sit on the fence here because all of them need to be taught integrated. And like I said before, STEM is the vehicle. And, in one of our courses about space junk, the students have to innovate a way of reducing the amount of space junk up in the atmosphere, but also to prevent us putting even more up there. So clearly that problem lends itself to engineering, maths, science, and technology. So that's how when we design courses, we're integrating the 4 areas. So I don't really want to say which one is the best one, or why the E is not there, or, because in our design, we make sure.
Yeah. And I remember studying at university, those who were studying engineering, and it was so distinctive then. It was kind of, I'm going to be a chemical engineer or whatever it was. And they were kind of very much set categories. And I remember at the end talking to my colleague, or my housemates or roommates, who were all engineers, and kind of just sort of summing up, going, oh, you guys are just problem solvers. You go in, you analyze things, and you solve the problem. That's what engineering is about. But it took me a while to dawn, and then it completely changed my view of what the engineer is. And we look at that software engineers, all those kind of things, who do the analysis, evaluation, which again, as you're saying, that integration is the design method. It's the scientific method. It's all of that element pushed together.
Absolutely.
But I can't believe it's really come to the end. But I'd love to thank you, Wendy, for what really has been an overdue catch-up, I'd say. I feel very lucky to get to talk to such a wonderful person like yourself, who keeps my STEM fire burning. I definitely say that. I have a few minutes with you and makes it all feel a lot better. I am one of your biggest supporters, and I'm so grateful that I get to call you a friend and be part of your orbit and work out how we push forward with the women in STEM as a collective and together. And I think the most powerful thing is that we have one another's backs and we support one another. And so I'm very lucky to have you. Now, to our listeners.
Thanks, Anna.
To our listeners, if you want to know more about Wendy's work, we shall keep you updated in the comments. But I'd like to thank you all for listening to us today, and we look forward to you joining us again next time.